What's up, YouTubers? So before we get started with this video, on first take, they're going to be talking about is the biggest upset ever the fight between Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson. So let's see what they have to say about that.
Mike Tyson, Stephen A., I don't know if the kids today understand, was unbeatable. He was the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. He was
Nah, I think kids nowadays know how bad Mike Tyson was, even back in his day.
going to reign for 10 or 20 years. No one could touch him. Stephen A., they had to have the Buster Douglas fight in Japan. Not because people weren't interested in Mike Tyson. He was there with Michael Jordan as the most compelling athlete in the world. It's because no one wanted to pay for a 90-second fight. His fights were going 90 seconds. They had to have it in Japan. And Buster Douglas, a 42-1 underdog, didn't just beat his brakes off, boxed him, and knocked him out. That was, to this day, the most shocking upset in the history of sports.
So I would definitely agree that Buster Douglas did beat down Mike Tyson. That was a sad day in sports, watching Mike Tyson go down. And as far as anything that rivals that, I would say the Cavaliers versus Golden State Warriors, when they came back from a 3-1 deficit, that was a huge upset. As a matter of fact, I remember Max Kellerman talking about that being a huge upset. And as far as the biggest sports upset ever, so it's a big world out there. There's a lot of different sports out there. I would say just in America, the biggest upset would be the Buster Douglas Mike Tyson upset, because we don't really know what's going on in other countries. Where soccer is huge out in the world. There might be some upsets then that we don't know about, or in croquet or whatever other sports. So I would say just in America, the biggest upset would be Buster Douglas, the Mike Tyson fight.
I tell you this, I feel so. I think his wife was there when he knocked out Trevor Berbick. I think Trevor Berbick's wife was there. That was really, really bad to see him getting up and keep falling back down and getting up and falling back down across the ring. It was funny yet very, very scary.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people that thought Mike Tyson would beat Trevor Berbick. That's not like how it was with Buster Douglas and Mike Tyson, where nobody thought Buster Douglas would win.
All at the same time, I would definitely say that's the greatest upset. And, me being a boxing fan, not a boxing aficionado such as yourself, but a boxing fan, I think about Iran Barkley knocking out Tommy the Hitman Hearns. That was a shocker. I think about Andy Ruiz beating Anthony Joshua. That was a shocker. I think about Oliver McCall knocking out Lennox Lewis. I think about Hasim Rahman knocking out Lennox Lewis. Ali beating Foreman was an up. Look. Foreman was Tyson before Tyson in 74. I think about that.
Liston was Foreman before Foreman.
My God, Foreman was a monster. But I will say this. To be a 42-1 underdog definitely is a shocker. From a numbers perspective, Max, I get that. Could see that the attention, the spotlight, and all of that stuff outside the ring was getting to him so much that you did find yourself wondering if anybody could take him past 3 or 4 rounds and make him actually have to box and fight to beat them, they would have a chance, but it wasn't because of them.
So you could definitely tell that Mike Tyson was partying. He was having a fun time. And he was completely underestimated Buster Douglas. Actually, they're complete polar opposites. Like I said, Mike Tyson was having fun, wasn't necessarily preparing for Buster Douglas because he thought he was just going to go in there and beat him down. Now, the polar opposite would be Buster Douglas, where his mother just died, so he's going to get hyped up over that and wants to fight good because of her. And nobody gave Buster Douglas a chance. I heard it was to the point that during interviews, Mike Tyson had all the interviews. Everybody was talking to Mike Tyson, and nobody was talking to Buster Douglas. Nobody gave him a chance. Nobody. And then all of a sudden, he comes on out and beats Mike Tyson. It was to the point that I heard in Mike Tyson's corner, they didn't have any ice. They didn't have anything to cut Mike Tyson's eye. They didn't have any water. They didn't have anything. They were completely unprepared for the Buster Douglas fight because Mike Tyson was supposed to just go in there and beat down Buster Douglas. As a matter of fact, if you really want to start splitting hairs, Mike Tyson did beat Buster Douglas, because if you go back, Mike Tyson knocked down Buster Douglas for longer than a 10 count. But the referee, I think he counted too low or too long or something. He gave him like a 12 count to where Mike Tyson should have won. But Buster Douglas got right back up and put them hands on Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson should have ended it there, but it just didn't go down. And if you want to talk about seeing somebody in their life a life-changing event. That was a life-changing event for Mike Tyson.
It was because of him and how mentally gone he prepared. You could see that as an analyst covering the sport, even though he was still an underdog, you could still see it. That's the only question. It's still the greatest upset. I don't have anything better than that.
But those are the questions. Steven.
Sorry, I didn't mean to come off again. But like I said, that was a great upset. And Mike Tyson, I don't know, he was having all that fun. When he was fighting, he was still fighting correctly. He was moving his head. He wasn't just going for the knockout. But like I said, he just completely underestimated Buster Douglas, and it changed his life. It wasn't like when he started signing up with Don King and all the other snakes, when all he would do was go out there and look for a knockout. No, he was still fighting good. He was still fighting correctly. He was moving his head around. He wasn't looking just for the knockout. He was actually boxing. But he underestimated Buster Douglas, and that would talk about a life-changing event that changed Mike Tyson's life. Even though he came back and he got the championship again, he became heavyweight champion again. But still, once he caught that L, and once he signed with Don King and all that, it was just completely downhill from there.
Hey, yeah. But Buster Douglas would show up fat and out of shape to fights, and he was talented, but he was 42-1. Like, there's always reasons an underdog scores an upset, and there were reasons there. Buster was great on that night. Tyson was distracted and everything. But I can't think of, like, the miracle on ice even, in hockey. A goalie can stand on his head, something could happen. But in boxing, when it's just two dudes and you really know what level they're fighting on, there's no other variables. To have a 42-1 underdog thoroughly beat the champ, I've never seen in any sport anything quite like it.